All right, we're back. We are back, and it is time to continue our series of positional talk. This is Second and Short here on the Mosaic MC platform, Mosaic Media Communications. I am Tyler Lauder. He is Jason Teasley, and we're going to bring you guys that, insider knowledge from the cheap seats. We see clarity when others see a bunch of blur. And we're going to continue what we did. If you missed our episode last week, we talked about quarterbacks. This is running backs. Next is receivers and tight ends. And you see how we're going. We're kind of be handing out some superlatives. But yeah, we're going to talk about lots of different topics. Like what is something on board for us today, Jason, that we're going to talk about?
Well, I don't know if we're going to talk about it. I think a lot of the yelling is going to go on. But we're going to talk about our surprise running back, our running back that's in the top 10 that we don't see that's going to finish there. It's going to finish a lot lower than their current ADP, and some running backs that's going to be outside the top 20 that's actually going to put up running back one numbers. And you're going to be talking about our rookie running back that that's everybody should be looking to gain.
Yes, 100%. So let's go ahead and start with where we were last week. We're going to talk about who is going to be the RB1 when the whole season's over. Obviously, we can't predict injuries. We shouldn't, and this is all bearing. But Christian McCaffrey, this is going to be the one of the easiest picks for me here. I know a lot of people are like, oh, injury and everything. And if you're trying to sell him right now and you can sell him, I think it's a good move to play it safe and get rid of him now. But if you can buy him, if he's going to go off, like I think he's going to, this will be the cheapest you're going to buy him at. Now, why will Christian McCaffrey finish as running back one? Well, let's just talk about what he does, first of all. And I've seen a lot of, I'm just going to have to call him out, talking about like McCaffrey and like, oh, he's had one good season and now he's been injured. And these injuries, he's not injury prone. He's had minor injuries. He's on a massive contract. Carolina doesn't want him to get hurt when they're not in playoff contention. So why force a guy back when you're 5-10? It doesn't make any sense. But people don't seem to understand that. They're thinking like, well, you should just play even though you're eliminated. And, the team should just have millions of dollars in dead cap because you can't play ever again. They're protecting their investment. Well, how do you protect your investment the best way? You go out and get him what he needs. And they upgraded at at right guard, at center. They went and they drafted Iquanu. They upgraded at tackle. And now they've got left guard that is kind of like the only spot that's a maybe, but if you have one spot that's like kind of weak on your offensive line, that's okay. And they upgraded 3 positions, and Taylor Moton's already got the right side of the right tackle locked down. And they have a pretty good pass blocking tight end in Tremble. They still have meh quarterbacks. So McCaffrey should feast even with the addition of Devontae Foreman.
Yeah. This is one where we're going to start out disagreeing here. I don't get me wrong. I love McCaffrey. But I think there's a lot of other players that are in that conversation that will edge him out. Most notably, the current RB1 that is across is Jonathan Taylor. I think you're going to see an emergence of Dalvin Cook this year as well. But taking McCaffrey as your RB1 is not insane. Some people may like that, and I can understand it. But like you said, you gotta look at it from a business standpoint and not a fantasy standpoint. You got to manage your expectations, because what good is he going to do if he plays through an injury for your actual football team? So getting him healed up, he's a great running back. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. So that's not a ding on him. I just think that this is not the year he's going to return to prominence, but I think he's in the conversation.
I mean, he's getting drafted as like the 5th running back off the board in startups right now. He's still 25 years old. He essentially has had 17 games rest in the past 2 years. That's another way to look at it. He hasn't had to have surgery on all these injuries that he's built up. He just has to rest and recover. And he's starting to adapt his game a little bit. I think they might take a load off of him. But Christian McCaffrey's best season as a running back makes every other running back's best season at all look like nothing, because he gets 100 plus receptions. He's going to get 1,000. He's going to get double-digit touchdowns. PPR standards, 100 receptions is 100 points. Like, that's a lot right there. That's the equivalent. Yeah. That's the equivalent of 1,000 yards for some running backs. So he's going to feast, and he's going to continue to do that, and especially in an offense that has DJ Moore and then a cast of guys that are there to do the job. But there's nobody that's like legit, in my opinion, as a Panthers fan. Like, Robbie Anderson has good traits. Terrence Marshall supposedly has good traits, but there's no definite. McCaffrey's a definite. If he's healthy, 30 points per game is what he does, and he does it best. He still finishes like running back like 31 last year, and he played 3 games. Mind you that.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was like RB like 37 or something like that, but he was like in the RB3 conversation with only 3 games. That's how good he can be if he's healthy. So let's talk about a running back that is getting drafted inside the top 10 that you think is going to fall outside the top 15. So we have a guy that's going to be a fringe, low-level RB2 potentially, or worse, that's expected to be the RB1 on a team.
Right here, I'm setting it with Alvin Kamara. I think this is a season that's going to really define him. And I think that, with Winston being able to air the ball out, it's going to take a lot of pressure off him. They're not going to be a reliant on the running game as they have been in the past. So he's not going to get the carries. He's not going to get the reception. They're going to move the ball toward a more pass-friendly offense. So, and I think this really hurts Kamara. And I think this is why he's going to drop outside the top 15.
I do think that is possible. We did talk about Jameis Winston in one of these 6 categories last week on the quarterbacks, but they did add added Jarvis Landry, as you alluded to. They drafted Chris Olave. Michael Thomas should be coming back healthy. Tony Jones still was like looking like a nice number 2 for a team last year. We don't know what's going to happen with Kamara, maybe suspension wise. I don't think it's hard for me to see a suspension coming this close to the season, but then again, we don't know. Really though, if he's playing, it's hard for me to see with the pass catching volume for him to fall out. We have seen some nagging injuries start to hit those. So it just could be with the added weapons around that he doesn't get as many targets as normal, which lowers his receptions. And then Tony Jones getting featured a little bit more could be a way for them to kind of work and to be a more dynamic team. This is a bold take. I do think that a lot of the top 10 running backs that are drafted there are ultimately pretty safe. They are all guys like Jonathan Taylor should be a lock to finish in the top 10. Austin Eckler, bearing injuries, should be a lock to finish top 10. Derrick Henry, same thing. Najee Harris, same thing. McCaffrey, Cook, Mixon, Kamara, all should, pending they play all their games. Just because of what they do. And now Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift are number 9 and 10 that are also a little more risky. But again, injuries is what is going to set somebody apart here. And I could see it being Kamara with how much blows he's taking to his body. It could happen. Now, running back rookie of the year, real quick topic. He's getting drafted right now. There's like 5 or 6 different places that have him as like the running back 23. This isn't accurate on this one. This is the one time I'm going to talk about ADP that I don't think it's accurate because there's not enough data on it because he's getting drafted in rookie drafts more than he has startups. But it's Breece Hall is going to be our running back rookie of the year. I believe that if 4th round pick, Michael Carter can finish his running back 30, that Breece Hall can do even better than that because Breece Hall is a better runner than Michael Carter. He's a better pass catcher. He's a better pass protector. I just think that he's a more polished runner. I think he's able to work laterally very well. He's able to create an open space better. And so I see Breece Hall having an easy top 24 finish for running backs as an RB1 or RB2. Every year we have those rookie running backs that kind of finishes like an RB1. So it could happen potentially, but I think this is very easy for me to lock this up. I don't know how high I would take him in startups. Like probably around the DeAndre Swift, Nick Chubb, in between that range is where I'd probably start to think about him, but I wouldn't take him any higher than DeAndre Swift or those previous 9.
Yeah, and I think the only other person that I see, and this is going to be a bold take on my end, that would push him for that is Cook in Buffalo. I'm becoming a Cook truther. I think the way the Jets are going to use that offense is I think they're going to, with Carter there, I think they're going to ease Hall in a little bit more. I don't think they're going to give him like the lion's share right out the gate. I think it's going to be a slow transition. And I think that's the only thing that may hamper him. But I think this is pretty much like we talked in our quarterback. He's got the easiest road to being the rookie running back of the year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of option there for them. They ran the ball 380 times last year total, and we can assume that Breece Hall probably is going to secure 200 rushes, which I think is a pretty sound thing to do. And even if he just averages 4 yards per carry, we're looking at 800 yards for him, which is looking at about 80 fantasy points right there. And that's just rushing yards alone. And then we look towards the next part of it. And I believe, was it Ty Johnson and Michael Carter saw 55 targets apiece? It's 110 targets. I think Breece Hall is going to take all of those targets. And let's just, in that situation, we'll give him the exact same stat line as Ty Johnson, which is 34 catches, 372 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So now we're looking at a situation where he's getting almost 1,200 total yards and 35 receptions, and he's going to get about 7 touchdowns. I think that is a fantastic stat line. Personally, that we do some quick math right here. Looking at 197 points in standard.
I would say I would put him at probably RB9.
That's what I'm thinking too, is that he could finish in that range. All right, so if we just go under running backs only for fantasy points, 197 points, and we're undershooting this right here, puts him right behind Javonte Williams. That would be RB18 at that stat line at 1,200 total yards, 35 receptions, 7 touchdowns. And we're talking 235 total touches. Very reasonable to finish as an RB17 right away as rookie of the year. James Cook, I do see the argument there. I don't think Kenneth Walker can, because they're going to use all their options in front of them with if Carson can play and Penny in his last year. But I would feel pretty good if he was my RB2 leaving an ADP, a startup. So now let's talk about, you're going to get really bold here. A running back that is getting drafted as RB20 or later that you think has a real good chance of finishing as an RB1.
And this is going to be Pollard out of Dallas. I think he showed flashes of excellence last year. And I think Zeke is going to transition to maybe the role of a complementary back. I know that's bold to say, but I think Pollard is going to make use of his touches, and he's going to be a dynamic force in Dallas. And as a Giants fan, I hate to say that because we play Dallas twice, but I think he has the ability and the opportunities to make a huge impact this year. And you're going to get him. I think we've seen he was going as like in the 30s.
He's running back 34 based on some of this ADP data that we're looking at. Again, that is iffy, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's in the 30s. He's 30 plus. But, I mean, he has the talent and the opportunity to get up to an RB12, which is interesting. And, this is one of those times I'm zigging when everybody else is zagging.
I think the big thing here is that this needs a Zeke injury to happen. I think that Zeke is going to take enough touches to prevent that. PPR formats, though, Pollard should see enough touches. Considering the fact that Gallup isn't going to be the 100% at the beginning of the season, I don't think he's going to start until week 5 or 6. They got rid of Cedric Wilson. They don't have Amari Cooper anymore. And to replace them, they bring in Tolbert out of the 3rd round. I think they got him, and then they brought in James Washington. So there's opportunity there for Pollard to take some snaps as well and get some targets that have been abandoned. But with Zeke in front of him, I don't see him finishing better than an RB2. Like RB24 is probably where as far as I'd push him. But this is a bold one. I think that when you're looking at your options in this area, your best option might have been to say like Zeke, to be honest, because Zeke is RB20. And I think that he could legitimately finish that high. But that's where we're at. Let's talk about a running back that I'm going to avoid. I don't care. I don't trust San Francisco. I'm not touching Elijah Mitchell. He costs way too much to acquire in trades. He's going to be drafted way too high. He's getting drafted around, just looking at all this on PPR formats, is like the 44th player off the board, the 21st running back and single quarterbacks. We could probably make that as like the 50th total guy or 55th total guy in Superflex leagues. And that's like about a 5th round guy. I don't want my RB2 to be Elijah Mitchell. That just doesn't seem safe to me, considering that they're going to use the hot hand. They're going to rotate through. I don't think Mitchell's this like dynamic talent that is like locked and loaded as the best guy there. I wouldn't be surprised if Trey Sermon takes touches from him this year. And we actually are like, oh, like Mitchell was just more ready day one than Sermon, but Sermon's actually still a better running back. Like that, you can't convince me one's better than the other because they're in San Francisco. And I just don't want to touch that situation.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Elijah Mitchell. I think that it was an outlier last year. And, you know, if you can cash in on his value right now is the time to do it. Because once the season starts, I think that value is going to start decreasing rapidly as the weeks go by.
Running backs that are getting drafted around the same area as him, we're talking about guys like Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Zeke Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Damian Harris. I would rather have all those guys than him.
Yeah,
I understand people don't like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I still do because I know he's an RB2 if he plays all season. I think he's a lock for an RB2. And people just kind of bash that because they're all the guys that drafted him at 1-1 and now they're mad at him. So they're thinking he's worthless, but that's far from the truth. And I think that Elijah Mitchell is too risky to be your RB2, too risky to draft when there's other guys like Montgomery, Jacobs, and Zeke that are clear number ones on their team. Maybe Zeke is a 1A, but Jacobs and Montgomery are clear number ones. And I just would rather go with those safer options, even though they're a little bit older. Now, who's a running back that is going to surprise everybody this year? And then once you say it, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. But go ahead.
Mine is actually Cam Akers. I think that the injury bounce back is what's going to be surprising, is how he's going to bounce back and rise up to that upper tier for him to be an RB1 this year. I know this is one we've debated multiple times, and we're going to debate it again, obviously. But I think Akers is one of those players that people are shying away due to the injury and due to the situation. But I think if you get him as an RB2, he's going to definitely benefit you.
So my thing with Cam Akers is that he's a story of, oh my God, why is he already playing? He didn't look that great in the playoffs. He's like a career, like 2.7 yards per carry type. He does not get a lot of yards per carry. He does not create in the open space like you'd hope him to. He also has to worry about Darrell Henderson in front of him. He has to worry about, the rookie running back that they just drafted, Kyren Williams, who was very productive at Notre Dame, had multiple 2,000-yard seasons. And he was just a beast for Notre Dame. And he's only 21 and he's healthier. And so maybe, an injury, a little nag happens. This guy steps up and takes the role. I just think Akers as running back 17 is way too early for me. But the value's there. Realistically, you could draft Akers as running back 17 and you could probably flip him just like Elijah Mitchell, even though I'm avoiding him. Both those guys, you could probably flip them for massive value. You get a guy to get a guy, I guess, right? Type thing. And that I've been preaching. It's too risky for me. I see the potential there. If he plays, he's in a good offense that should be winning more games than they're losing. So they should be running the ball later compared to most teams. So I see that positive aspect, but I just don't trust it 100%. And I think he's more of a story. And it all comes down to health for that whole running back. There might not be, to me, I might just be out on the NFC West running backs as a whole. Like, I don't think there's a running back in the NFC West that I'm like dying to have right now. And maybe that's just my thing. So, yeah, surprise. It could. I mean, if it happens, it happens. And you call it right here. You're good. There's a lot of Akers truthers out there, a lot of Mitchell truthers, a lot of Pollard truthers. We'll see. And this has been our short running back talk show for 2022, giving out our superlatives of all these things that we think are going to happen to help you guys out. Just our little knowledge here, our little thoughts and everything process to get you guys to the next step. This has been a Mosaic MC Productions second and short. Jason Teasley. I'm Tyler Louder. We'll see you guys next week when we talk about wide receivers, and that's going to get spicier too. And as always, get out there and make some damn trades.